I welcome you to a new lesson. We continue working on the header. First of all, let's figure out where it is usually edited. For block themes, everything on our page, on our site as a whole, is edited through the Editor tab. Therefore, we go into the editor, and essentially a page builder built on Gutenberg opens up for us. And basically, by entering any template, no matter which page, we can edit the header from it. For example, I select it. Yes, this is a component, the header part. I choose to edit it, and it opens separately for me. I can add any blocks here and edit something in general. This concerns the default header. So if your design has a very trivial header, meaning simple, displaying the logo is also a WordPress component, a regular block called site logo. Navigation also has a component that creates this navigation, a separate block. So, if you have a very simple header, you will have to manually add it here in the admin panel, then take its source code and switch to the code editor like this. This is the code of our header. As I mentioned, we have a site logo block, which is responsible for the logo, and a navigation block, which will generate the navigation. And essentially, I added a piece of text here. This is my paragraph. Yes, I added a new block inside this header. I can take this text from here, go to the source code, find the parts directory in the source where our header is, and update this header HTML. This is how simple, trivial headers are built. However, in our case, the header is a bit more complex because we have 3 icons here. For example, when you click on the detach search, a search will open in the folder like this. Next, when typing, an Ajax search will be performed, and all of this will be present in the header block. Then we have a color scheme switch on the site. We also have a shopping cart, a link to the user profile. So it's not that simple. And to implement this specific header, we will need to develop a separate block. We can develop this component, we can create it entirely unique, or we can combine it. I usually combine because I use the logo and navigation from WordPress itself, meaning these 2 blocks that I just showed you with comments in HTML. I can use them and write my own wrapper for everything else. That's what we're going to do now. And the second point, guys, let's see what happens when we make some changes we save. This template, you see it says template part updated. Let's refresh this page. Let's also refresh the front of our site. Our changes have taken effect, right? Here and here. If we go to our project, close, for example, the header and enter it again, our changes do not appear here, even though there was a message that the part was updated. This is the peculiarity of how Gutenberg works. It saves this, but it does not save in the source files. These source files serve as a backup, meaning we set the styles for the first time through this source file. If I, for example, write something here like this test and go to the page and refresh, nothing happens, you see. The changes are not added. If I hadn't saved, meaning if I hadn't taken this first step, the test would have displayed because the old version was the same as in the source file. But specifically after my changes, it is already different, and in the source file, it is also different. So the changes I write here will not respond. But if I, for example, reset these changes from here, by selecting reset like this, my changes are cleared. But what I added in the source file is loaded. If we refresh the page here, what we have in the source file is already loaded. Are you aware of this feature? It reads changes from here only if the database, so to speak, has the same data as here. If we change something through the editor, consequently this body will change. But it won't change in the file itself. WordPress doesn't interfere here. In this case, there's no need to edit this file anymore. Well, more precisely, you can edit it, but to read data from it, you'll need to reset. To implement the header and the new block, we need to go to the appropriate directory. For this, we registered a separate plugin called Blocks Game Store. We open it, the SRC folder. We have 2 test blocks. We copy one of them and add it to the same directory. We'll leave those 2 test blocks for now. Next, we'll rename it. We'll call it the header block. We open the first thing we edit, which is the JSON block. I don't want it like this. Let's increase it a bit. Here was the display of the entire name. So in this file, the JSON block is a configuration file. We change the following. Its ID, in this case, will be the header block. The version. Every time we add updates to this block in the future, don't forget to also change the version to avoid cache issues, ensuring the site always loads fresh CSS and fresh JSON. Especially if the site uses Cloudflare cache, you should be aware of this feature. Next, we will name our block. Header category. We will create our own category and name it Game Store Icon. I use Layut as the icon description. Site header. Block. Next. Example. We remove it. We don't need support for HTML files. Next, we will need to have data in this block. So we should add an additional parameter attribute here. Let's add it to the attribute. For now, I will set one field that I will store for the link to the member area. Actually, I have 2 because I will also store one for the cart. Link to the cart, link to the member area. Everything else in principle are dynamic buttons. They do not request data. Therefore, member link. For naming, we use camel case. We can use autocompletion because the type is string. And by default, it's empty if we have it empty by default. We can omit this parameter entirely and write it this way. Next, for the cart, we will create a cart. Link this parameter, type string. That's it, we made the JSON configuration file. Next, I suggest registering the category that I selected here. So, a category is merely a grouping of blocks by types, and I specified a game store ID for a non-existent category, because this is my newly created one. I will go to the main file of this plugin, the game store block, and here, somewhere in any place, let's remove the comment. They are in our way, so let's create this category somewhere here using a special filter. This filter. So the filter, we call it the block category so. And we need to pass an array which will contain this flag with the name of this category. Therefore, I write it like this. So let's reproduce all this by filling it in. Copilot did an excellent job with the task. We need to use this ID. This is the very ID that I specified here, and we need to assign a category name to it. In this case, it will be Game Store. Next, this is done using translation functions so that if this site is translated into different languages, so that this string is also available for translation. In principle, it's pointless here because it's the project name, but this feature can be skipped and not used. You can simply write it like this. Next, since we are in this file, let's register it. Let's remove this registration. We only need one block right now, and we'll change it. The ID, meaning with this line, we are now registering our newly created block for future lessons. Most likely, we will either move this code or another one that we will add into separate thematic files. I don't like putting large chunks of code into the main file as it becomes hard to read and comprehend. By the way, this is not a black block here, so for now, this will do fine. But in the future, we will also structure the hierarchy within our code that we write. Here, in principle, we have completed everything. Looking at the block JSON, we discussed this part. Everything is clear, the lower part. So, the text domain, as understood, defines the text domain at the block editor script level. So, this is the JSON that we write in edit. In save, they converge in the index, and they are available both on the front end and in the admin editor style. So, this editor CSS file is a style that will only work in the admin area, that is, in the Gutenberg editor, whereas this style, this CSS file, will be both on the front end and in the admin area. Next, the view script. This file, view.json.s, for the block, it will only work. For the front end, that's exactly where it is loaded. In principle, if you watch the course on Gutenberg or on full site, you should know this. Next, we need to start describing the body for our components. Let's open edit.js. This is the file for writing JSX, which will be displayed in Gutenberg. Let's remove these comments right away. This is the generator that generated this plugin for us. They are inserted for beginners to help them navigate. We don't need them, so we delete them. They make the code hard to read. Let's start by loading the attributes. We have 2 fields for attributes, and we will store 2 variables there. So, in this way, we will pass and receive them here. So, you see, Copilot seems to save time, but in this particular case, it doesn't catch the connection. Because right now I need these 2 variables, but it's suggesting completely different ones. But no big deal, let's try. I'll write member. Well, it caught 1, but I need 2. And it caught member, but I need member wing. But in any case, it helps a little. But again, to use it, you must already have experience. Because only with experience can you see the gray code it suggests and understand whether it will help you or not. That is, whether to use autocomplete or still type manually. So, what will we need for the admin panel? For the admin part, we need inner blocks. That is, I said that for the part with the logo from the navigation, I will use the blocks available in Gutenberg. But in order to have this plus sign, so I could add these blocks here, I need to use the inner blocks component, and it allows not only these, but any blocks to be inserted into your header. So I will be loading it. It is located in the block editor, so from here where we have the prof block, we place a comma and select the so block. We will also need inspector controls. Controls, inspector. We also have fields, so we will be adding these fields in the sidebar. We will need the body panel and directly the text field, text control. We import them. They are located in the component. Import. Okay, wonderful. The panel will be text control. In this case, you see, I voiced them. I sincerely hope that Copilot is not eavesdropping on my microphone, because I literally voiced it and it suggested them to me. It would be very scary if that's the case. We need to install these dependencies because they are most likely not installed. We need to go into the terminal. First of all, navigate to this directory. Game store, then sit into plugin. I went into plugins, then cd blocks. Game store, I went into game store, then npm. Install and specify this component. It starts downloading it. If it exists, it will update it, but I don't have it because this is the first call of this component. Block editor is there because WordPress used it for use block props when it was generating. This wasn't there. So while it's downloading, let's remove this loading. Internationalization. We don't have any strings here that need to be wrapped in this function for translation. Therefore, we simply won't need it. Here, remove it. And we can also remove this part from here. Next, we will need to create a body for our header. So let's proceed as follows. Here we will return a component like this because we will have several divs. In React, it should accept, or rather it should return only one component. So I add this kind of wrapper. Next, what interests me is that this will no longer be a paragraph. I'm interested in this div, this part for the sidebar. So I call upon the help of the inspector control component. Inspector control, we will have a panel body, as the auto-completion suggests to us. Let's use this code because it really fits. So we have a panel body, we set a title for it. Next, we have two text fields. One text field will change the value for member link. The second text field, cart link, will change the value for cart link. Quite well, and we load it. And in the attributes, everything will change nicely, wonderfully moving forward. So this inspector control component will generate this part for me. Here, in the block, when I select the block, yes, it will have its settings here. For example, a logo. By selecting here, two fields will be generated. I move on to the layout of the header itself. We create a certain container with the class inner header. Next, in this section, let's use inner blocks here so that we can insert a logo and navigation. Basically, this entire section is our component further on. This part inside with paddings will be inner, followed by a class and a div that I set up. Next, inner blocks will be used for these two components. And for this entire section, I will create my own separate wrapper on div, class name, and I'll call it right section. And we will have, firstly, a div class name for search header. Stitch. Next, we have here will be class name for switcher, modal, switcher. Next, we will have a div class name. Header cart link, a link that provides convenient access to the digital shopping cart. And the default header member link. Let's see what data we have. So in the member link, we will have a link reference. By the way, we could have left internationalization here since we do have a text string. We could have done it. Translation among nothing serious. So we will have a tag for the link. And within it, we will have the link itself. Without quotes. For the member link, you can then add a check to see if this member link is not empty. Show the button, show the entire section as a whole. If the member link is not empty when we display this div. If you have a complex block here, then enclose it in parentheses. If you have a large piece of markup, you can enclose it in parentheses. For the cart, you can do the same. We perform a check on the park link. If it contains a value, we will display this link. Here it will not be an empty link. We will insert an SVG icon for the icons, either directly insert the SVG here or attach them via CSS. I finished everything on the admin side. Now we need to work on the front end. Let's move to the Jest side. I deliberately did not turn on the compiler. Usually when we write code for the compiler block, we turn it on. But as you saw, I was doing copy pasting, I change a lot. Therefore, usually when I start, I first do all these manipulations. Otherwise the compiler might throw errors, it might complain. So we first do all this, fix it. And then in the end we turn off the compiler and it will compile this block for us. For now, this block won't work anywhere in the admin panel until it is compiled. Okay, for the import, on the front end we only need use block props. So this use block props will simply generate classes, attributes for the main container, for the main component. And we will also need the inner blocks block, through which we will load the blocks, that we will add to the inner blocks header. We will also need the attributes here. So in this way, we call these attributes. And here he already understood them well and suggested doing it correctly. Further on, this paragraph, we turn it into a div. The body here will be copy pasted. So let's see what he suggests. But it will surely be more reliable to copy and paste it. It's important when we create static blocks. Now this is for a static block, so that the layout from the admin panel, that is from the backend, matches the site. If it differs, either our logic or something else is off. Here's something. On Jest, will generate one HTML in the admin panel and another on the front end constantly. In Gutenberg, there will be a notification that the block is requesting recovery, meaning restoration, because of different versions in the theme, or here we did a copy paste of the inner block. Let's pay attention to how they use the block. See the example. And we refer to it through safe. That is, we don't need the parameters in the admin panel, because in the admin panel it's just a block example. The same from the inner block. That is, we don't need to load the entire inner block with the component, only the part intended for the front end. Therefore, here we refer to the content to load specifically the front end part. And for the rest, in principle, we have implemented everything here. Vue.js, our code will be empty. Here, in principle, it is empty. There is nothing useful here. Style and editor. We will edit the style later. Edit.js we do not edit. We can simply delete the comments so that in the future, when we copy paste, everything is not cluttered with these comments as they are unnecessary. Such code is much more comfortable and easier to read than full comments. That's it. In principle, everything is okay. We are currently in the plugin folder, so we can confidently run npm run start. And if we have no syntax errors, it will compile them well without errors. Yes, we see everything in green without errors. Now let's go to the admin panel. Exit the editor and reload the page. Enter the editor once more. Go to the header. Let's specifically choose the header. I will select it like this, meaning the header component, and proceed. This is how you go to the header itself. Removing from it everything that I added. Here, I can save the navigation with Ctrl+C and remove it in principle. Now we need to add our header. This is my header by icon. That is, I set this icon as layout, and this is my header that I insert here. My block has been inserted. My block generates two links. See guys, the first link, or let's just do it like this, cart. And for member link, for now, there will be such a link. Member link is a link. It immediately shows us the anchor. Cart is also a link, but we didn't set an anchor there. That's good. Logo, choosing. the site logo. We insert it. We also need to insert navigation here. I press Control because I have it copied, so back. I will choose header, control, and icon. Damn. Let's do it differently then. Let's review. And in this paragraph, I insert navigation like this. We save. I go to the front part and we see the new header. We see the member area. We see the navigation. But we don't see the logo because we haven't set an image. And of course, there are no styles yet. Without styles, the header is not even clear. But what we do next, essentially, this will be the body of our header. HTML. There won't be many changes here, not only dynamic ones like navigation. Links will be added. Therefore, at this step, we need to switch to the code and take this sort of a backup of our header. We copied it, went back to the visual editor, and this code we need to insert into the template. That is, we return to the game store, and in this header.html, we remove the old code and add the new code. Why is this done? This is done so that upon reset, it doesn't revert to the previous header, but to this one, ours. So this will be our starting point. So our first default header, yes, without data, but it will be our first header. Also, when we first send this to the dev server, for example, or to production too, so as not to recreate it from scratch, we will recreate it from this position. But it won't be from this position because there are no CSS styles here. While these styles not set, it doesn't look like a header. So it should look like this kind of header, or like this black one, right? But for now, it doesn't look like that because we have done everything related to the functionality of this header. That is, we created a block for it. We will stop at this lesson for now. And in the next lesson, we will continue by adding styles to our header. That is, we will make it look like what we have in the design. See you in the next lesson.